Once again, Coach Farouk, thank you very much for your time. Just to get straight on it, last night we witnessed a game, France versus South Africa. We lost 5-0. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, more than anything, I was disappointed. You know, if you lose a game, it's not so much about the score because, as we said, you know, France is number 3 in the world. But it's the way we approached the game. In the first half, we competed with France. Although they were 2 goals up, we gave ourselves a chance of at least getting something. We created a couple of chances moving forward. Not that clear chances, but at least we showed the initiative. What disappointed me in the second half is that we never entered their attacking third. And for me, that is really not how you build for the future. You know, you need to ensure that you don't fear the opposition. You respect them, but you don't fear them. And to see the way our players were meant to look by the likes of Mbappe, etc. That was a little bit sad. It means that surely we need to ensure that we have players from a young age learning their craft so that when they come up against these type of players, they are able to hold their own. I don't think we were able to hold our own. I think to a large extent we were found really wanting. And to an extent where it was a case of the coach after the game asking, how is it possible that a player who plays 90 minutes is left on the field and he doesn't even appear in the last 5 games for his club? So that is a question we've got to ask. We've got to ask the question about Kulu not playing for a club. How is it possible that he can be playing for the national team? Because part of the criteria when selecting players is players that are actively involved. And for me, we have to bring it up. I support the national coach. I support the technical team. But, you know, we can't have people not being accountable for those decisions. They have to explain to us. How is it possible that we could leave a Jali out and make an excuse for it, or even a Zwane out? These are players that we can build around. So I think because we didn't have those characters, we were found wanting against a powerhouse like France.
Coach, if you look at the game, at times it felt like physically they were superior,
Yes.
tactically superior, technically superior. Basically in all aspects of the game,
Absolutely.
they were just superior, and the
Absolutely.
gap seems to be very, very huge.
Yeah.
And that is a worrying factor. And it's something that we need to address. What would you say are the key things that we need to address to try and narrow that gap?
All right, I'm going to use a comparison now. In France, every child plays sport at school. Every child is actively involved in some form of sport. There's facilities made available in France. I went down with the Kaiser Chiefs Academy during the World Cup in '98 to Saint Denis. And everywhere you look, you find open spaces where kids play, whether it's tennis courts, whether it's fields. But as young as 5 and 6 years old, those kids are starting their development in both the physical, the technical, the tactical, the psychological, and the social side in different forms. Obviously, they don't emphasize too much on tactics when the kids are young, but at a specific age of 14, tactics start being introduced. Physical training is done where they use the kids' body weight. We think physical training shouldn't be done. No, they do physical training, but without lifting weights or anything. They do strength training, they use plyometrics, they use resistance training. So those kids grow up becoming, all you need to do is watch La Liga Promises and you look at the physicality of those kids. At 14 and 15, you realize we are behind. From a technical point of view, it combines techniques and physical, it combines, because you could have a technical skill to control the ball, but if you're not strong enough, like we saw yesterday, there was a number of times when the French players just dispossessed us so easily. You know, we can't fault us for having technique, but today it's a case of combining physical, technical, tactical, and we're not combining it. We're using those skills individually. So we have technical skills, but those technical skills aren't complemented by strong physicality, by good tactical awareness. So we need to as youth coaches now, start with us, not with the PSL, because people are blaming the PSL. I wonder, how could you blame the PSL? The PSL has got nothing to do with development. If they are developing players, it's because they want to utilize those players in their first team. But for whatever reason, if those players are not ready, the coach won't use them. And that's the short end of the stick. We got to accept that. You know, there's never a player. I mean, I can speak from experience. When I introduced Jabu Pule, Tlantla Kubeka, Isaac Mabotsa, Gerald Sibeko, all of these players, they went into the first team with Mushin and they played because they were already physically, technically and tactically well developed, as well as psychologically. They didn't become nervous putting on the Kaiser Chiefs shirt, although it's a very heavy shirt. So this is what I'm saying, is we need to ensure that that gap between the DDC and the top should be such where when the player is promoted, he's fully developed. So the coach has no reason not to use him. And it varies. Some of the players at the bigger clubs will possibly make it in the smaller, so-called smaller teams. But when you look at the bigger clubs that are buying players for huge sums of money, they don't need to play youngsters that are not ready. Are you gonna leave out a Hashim Domingo for Modisi who's 21? No, not, because you're competing in both the Champions League and the league. I mean, in Sundowns, there's 3 players that are under 25. And they're the best team currently in the PSL, and they're competing in Africa on the even footing. So surely you can't argue with them and say, why aren't you playing Promise Mkuna? Why aren't you using him? Because the coach will say, I have a player that's going to do a job for me. Promise must wait for his opportunity. When he proves that he's capable, he will come in. So we got to understand where the development starts and where it finishes. It doesn't start at PSL level. It starts at school level. It starts at the LFAs. You guys as journalists, we as coaches must start ensuring that we convince the powers that be. We need critical thinkers that can start changing the narrative and saying, where do we start? We can't keep on blaming the structures. We must start looking at down there in grassroots. The countries that have been successful, like France, started with Clairefontaine. Belgium have started a development program where kids under 11 don't play full-sided games. They play 4v4, 3v4, 3 versus 4, 4 versus 4, sorry, 5 versus 5, and 7v7. They only start playing 11v11 when the boys are 14 and 15 years old. We got to do the same so that kids have more touches on the ball, so that kids can express them more. We need to stop directing kids and removing that natural skill that we have, that natural talent African players. We're overcoaching it. We're coaching the skill out of our players. We need to ensure that that skill remains. Imagine now today if I told KG, don't take them on because they're big. I'm saying, KG, take them on because I know KG is skillful. So maybe now they're physically going to be strong. But imagine if KG in 2 or 3 years when he has the physicality and the confidence. So we need to create what our forefathers were able to do. The teenage Ladas, the Sulans, the Jomo Sonus. They were skillful players that were able to exhibit their skill. Nobody stopped them. Today, we're coaching the skill out of our players. And I think that needs to change.
Coach, you've said a mouthful. Thank you very much for your time.
Always a pleasure, my brother. Always a pleasure.